Hi, my name is Amelia, and I'm 24. I've been working as a barista at a local coffee shop in the heart of the city for the past 2 years. It's not glamorous, but it's a job I love. There's something about the rhythm of the day, the constant hum of the espresso machine, the gentle clink of coffee cups being set on the counter that brings me a sense of calm. I'm the kind of person who finds peace in the small, everyday things. I take pride in knowing my regular customers by name and their usual orders, and making the perfect cup of coffee every time, and organizing the shelves of syrups and beans to perfection. The job isn't complex, but there's something satisfying in its simplicity. And in a way, the job has helped me forget the things I've been running from. I've never been the outgoing type, never the center of attention. I tend to blend into the background. Even when I do speak, it's more out of habit than necessity. I'd rather keep to myself, stay out of the spotlight, and avoid anything that might make me feel vulnerable. The coffee shop has become a refuge, a place where I don't have to be anyone but myself, quiet, unassuming, and safe. But sometimes life has a funny way of shaking up the status quo. And that's exactly what happened one Tuesday afternoon. The sky outside was clear, the sun shining through the windows of the shop, casting a golden hue over the counter. I was busy wiping down the espresso machine, my favorite task of the day. It's the small moments like this, the calm before the storm of the rush hour, that I find the most peaceful. The shop wasn't busy yet, just a few customers scattered around the tables. Some reading, some working on their laptops, and a couple chatting quietly. Then the door jingled, signaling a new customer entering, and I glanced up to see him dot at. First, it was just a flicker of recognition, a feeling that I'd seen him before, but that was impossible. He was new to the shop. He didn't look like anyone I knew. He was tall, at least 6 feet, his dark, tousled hair slightly falling into his eyes. He had a deep brown, almost warm amber, gaze that immediately seemed to lock onto mine. He wore a well-worn leather jacket, faded blue jeans, and boots that looked like they had stories to tell. He had that quiet confidence about him, the kind of confidence that doesn't need to be flashy or loud. It simply exists in the way he carries himself. For a second, I forgot what I was doing. My hands froze mid-motion as I tried to register what was happening. Why did I feel like my heart was racing suddenly? Why did I feel so ... aware of him? I quickly blinked and reminded myself to breathe. It was just a customer, I told myself. Nothing more. Hi, he greeted me, his voice smooth and deep, almost like a melody. I'll have a black coffee, please. Sure, I said, still trying to shake off the unusual feeling his presence had stirred in me, coming right up. I moved to prepare his coffee, my hands just a little more jittery than usual. I had made hundreds of coffees over the past 2 years, but something about this moment was different. My fingers fumbled for the right cup, the right amount of coffee grounds. The noise of the coffee machine, the hiss of steam felt louder somehow. My heart was pounding in my chest, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I wasn't just existing, but feeling something. Thank you, he said as I handed him his coffee, our fingers brushing for a brief moment. A jolt of electricity ran through me, and I instinctively looked up at him. Our eyes locked for a brief second, and I felt something that I couldn't explain. It wasn't just a casual glance, it was a recognition. Like there was something deeper connecting us in that instant. You're welcome, I replied, my voice a little quieter than I intended, almost as though I had just awoken from a trance. He flashed me a smile, and it was unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't just polite, it was warm, genuine, and full of unspoken meaning. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but there was something in that smile that seemed to say, I've been waiting for you. I turned away quickly, trying to steady. my nerves as I focused on finishing the task at hand. My heart was still thumping in my chest. I couldn't figure out what had just happened, why I felt so affected by someone I'd never met before, but he wasn't done with me yet. As he turned to walk away, he glanced back over his shoulder. By the way, he said, his voice carrying that same warmth, I'm Ryan. I just moved into the neighborhood. I'm Amelia, I managed to say, forcing a smile. Nice to meet you. Ryan nodded, still smiling. I'll be around, he said casually, before walking to a small booth by the window. He settled in, pulling out a book, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still aware of me, even from across the room. His eyes would flicker up from his book every now and then, catching mine, and each time I felt a strange flutter in my stomach. Was I imagining things? Or was there really something more between us? The rest of the day passed by in a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time I caught a glimpse of Ryan, my heart would skip a beat. It wasn't just his looks that affected me, it was the way he carried himself. It was the way. He seemed to make the world feel like it paused when he was around. I told myself I was overthinking it. After all, he was just a customer, and I was just the barista. Nothing more. But then, as I closed up the shop that evening and stepped outside into the cool night air, my thoughts were still tangled up in him. I had a sinking feeling in my chest that this wasn't the last time I'd be thinking about Ryan. I couldn't quite explain it, but something had shifted. Something deep inside me had been awakened, something I had buried for a long time, and as I walked home, the quiet street around me felt suddenly alive, full of possibilities that I hadn't noticed before. Could this be the beginning of something new? The next few days felt like a quiet storm was brewing inside me. I'd wake up thinking about him. I'd go to work and find my thoughts wandering back to that brief moment we'd shared. It wasn't just his appearance or his smile that lingered. It was something deeper, something unspoken, something electric. A pull that I couldn't resist. Even though I had no idea where it was leading, Ryan returned to the coffee shop the very next day, as if he had been waiting for the right moment. The moment our eyes met, there was no denying it. There was something between us. Something real. Something that couldn't be ignored. The days after Ryan's first visit to the coffee shop were a strange mixture of excitement and confusion. It wasn't just his looks or the way he smiled that kept me up at night. It was the connection I felt with him, something that went beyond the superficial. Every time he came in, I noticed it more. There was an undeniable pull between us, something deeper than just two people sharing a fleeting glance. I had never been one for bold gestures or taking risks, especially in matters of the heart. In fact, I had spent years building walls around myself. After high school, after a few failed relationships, I had decided to keep my heart locked away. No one could break it if it was firmly guarded. I told myself I didn't need anyone else to make me happy, that the comfort of my routine working at the coffee shop, reading, walking through the park was enough. But then there was Ryan. He didn't try to push me into anything. He didn't ask for anything more than a cup of coffee, a simple conversation here and there. And yet, every time I saw him, I felt the weight of those walls I had built start to crack. It wasn't something I could explain to anyone. How could I? What was it about him that made my heart race, my stomach flutter with excitement? What was it about him that made me want to trust him? Each day, Ryan would return to the coffee shop, usually around the same time mid-afternoon, just as the rush had settled and the light was soft and golden. He always sat in the same booth by the window, and more often than not, I would catch him looking at me. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but no. His eyes were always on me, with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. He would smile whenever our eyes met, that same soft, knowing smile. And I would smile back, feeling my Heart skip. It wasn't a flirtatious smile. It was more than that. There was something else in it. Something warm, something that made me feel like I mattered in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. On one particular day, I noticed he wasn't sitting at his usual spot. He was standing at the counter, his usual cup of coffee in hand, but he wasn't just standing there staring at me. No, this time he was waiting. Waiting for me to acknowledge him. "Amelia," he said, his voice breaking the quiet hum of the coffee shop. He looked at me with a curiosity I hadn't seen before. "You always seem so calm." I blinked, taken aback. "I guess it's just the coffee shop. It's peaceful here," I said, unsure of where the conversation was heading. Ryan's eyes sparkled as if he was about to share a secret. "I can tell. But I also get the sense there's more to you. Something ... deeper." The words hit me harder than I expected. Was I really that easy to read? He could see right through me. I felt exposed in a way I didn't like, yet there was something comforting about his gaze. I wasn't used to being seen so clearly, so completely. "I don't know what you mean," I said quickly, avoiding his eyes and focusing on the espresso machine. "I think you do," he replied softly. There was a pause, and then he added, "Sometimes the people who seem the most composed are the ones who have the most to say." I felt my heart beat a little faster. What was he trying to say? He seemed to be reading me in ways I couldn't explain. I had always been the quiet type, hiding behind my shy smile, retreating to the background where I felt safe. But now Ryan was pulling me from the shadows and forcing me to confront something I have long ignored. My own yearning for something more. Later that afternoon, after the shop had quieted down and I was cleaning up, I noticed Ryan was still at his usual booth, sipping his coffee. This time, though, he didn't have a book in his hands. Instead, he was just sitting there, staring out the window as if lost in thought. I could feel his presence even from across the room, and I couldn't help but wonder what was going on. In his mind, I gathered my courage and walked over to his table, wiping my hands on a cloth as I approached. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant. Ryan looked up at me, surprised, as if he hadn't realized I'd been watching him. Then he smiled, but this time it was different. It wasn't the easygoing smile I had grown accustomed to. It was more intense, more vulnerable. "Yeah, everything's fine. Just thinking." I could sense there was more to it, but he didn't elaborate. Instead, he motioned to the empty seat across from him. "Sit with me for a minute." I hesitated for a second. Should I? Was it too forward of me? But then I realized that my curiosity, my need to understand what was happening between us, was stronger than any hesitation I had. I sat down, and for a few moments we just sat there in comfortable silence. The city bustled outside the window, but inside the coffee shop, everything felt still. Like time had slowed down just for us. "I'm glad you came over," Ryan said, after a while, breaking the silence. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange intensity. "I've been meaning to talk to you, Amelia. I don't know what it is, but there's something about you that feels familiar." I blinked, surprised. By his words, familiar? I repeated, unsure if I understood him correctly. "What do you mean?" Ryan leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair as if searching for the right words. "It's hard to explain, but I get the feeling we've known each other longer than just these few interactions. Like maybe we were meant to meet, like there's something more here." His words sent a shiver down my spine. Was this a joke? Was I imagining this? I felt a flush of warmth on my cheeks and quickly looked away, unsure of how to respond. Was he saying what I thought? He was saying that he felt something too. Before I could process my thoughts, Ryan reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. His touch was gentle, warm, and comforting. I felt my heart race, but instead of pulling away, I stayed. I stayed because there was something about his touch, something about the way he looked at me that made me feel safe. Despite the whirlwind of emotions racing through me, I know this might seem sudden, Ryan said, his voice low and sincere, but I feel like we could really connect. I don't want to rush anything, but I don't want to walk away from this feeling either. I feel like I'm finally seeing something real. I swallowed, my throat dry. I had never been good at expressing my emotions, but somehow Ryan made it easy. He made it okay to open up, to feel the things I had locked away for so long. I feel it too, I whispered, barely audible. I don't know what it is, but I feel it. Ryan smiled again, this time with a tenderness that made my heart flutter. Then let's see where it goes, he said softly. No pressure. Just let's see. In that moment, I knew something had shifted between us. It wasn't just the warmth of his touch or the way his words made me feel like I was finally waking up from a long, deep sleep. It was the realization that maybe for the first time in years, I was allowing myself to feel something beyond my usual walls. I was starting to believe in the possibility of something more, something beautiful, something real. Ryan and I continued to talk for hours that day, each conversation drawing us closer, but there was no rush, no pressure. It was like we were both letting the other in piece by piece, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. That evening, as I walked home after my shift, my thoughts were tangled in him. There was a fluttering in my chest, a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in so long. Could this be the beginning of something real? Something I had been too afraid to believe in? For the first time in a long while, I let myself dream. The weeks after that conversation with Ryan felt like a shift in my world. Everything seemed a little brighter, more vivid. Even the ordinary moments at the coffee shop seemed to sparkle with possibility. The air between us had thickened, filled with something unspoken, but it wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it was exhilarating. Every time Ryan came into the shop, the world around us seemed to fade, leaving just the two of us, navigating the space between the small glances and quiet conversations. I couldn't deny that I was drawn to him in a way that felt both exciting and frightening. He wasn't just a customer anymore. Ryan had become something more, a constant, a reminder of the part of me I had locked away. There was a magic in the way we talked, in the way we shared pieces of our lives without pressure, without expectations. Every conversation felt like a small unraveling of something deeper, something that I had hidden away for far too long. As the days passed, I found myself looking forward to his visits. He didn't just come in for coffee anymore. He started bringing me small gifts, little things that made me smile, like a book of poetry one day, a record of my favorite band the next. Simple, thoughtful gestures that let me know he was thinking of me, even when we weren't together. I started opening up to him in ways I hadn't allowed myself to with anyone else. The walls I had spent years building around my heart were slowly crumbling, piece by piece. I was beginning to trust him, to let him in, even though every fiber of my being told me to guard myself, to protect my heart. But there was something about Ryan's quiet patience, his ability to listen and understand without judgment, that made me feel safe. One evening, after the shop had closed for the day and the streets outside were quiet, Ryan invited me to go for a walk with him. The weather was crisp, and the cool breeze seemed to carry the last remnants of fall with it, the smell of fallen leaves and rain in the air. We walked side by side, not speaking much, but the silence was comfortable. We didn't need words to fill the space between us. The connection was undeniable, and there was a peacefulness in just being near each other. We passed the park where I used to walk as a child, and I found myself telling him about those memories, about how the old oak tree in the corner had been my favorite spot to sit and read, how I used to dream about leaving this small town, imagining that one day I would find something bigger than the life I was living. I used to think I had to go somewhere else to find happiness, I said, looking at the park's glowing lampposts. But now I wonder if it's here all along. In the little things. Ryan smiled, his hand brushing mine for the briefest of moments. I think you're starting to figure it out, he said, his voice soft, but with a depth that made my heart beat faster. Happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you let in. His words hung in the air as we continued walking, and I felt something stir inside me. Was that what I was doing? Letting happiness in? Letting someone in? For so long, I had shut myself off, convinced that I didn't need anyone to complete me, that I was enough on my own. But with Ryan, it felt different. It felt like I wasn't just finding happiness in my own life, but in someone else's too. As we reached the corner of the street, Ryan stopped and turned to face me. There was an intensity in his gaze that made me hold my breath. He wasn't just looking at me in that moment, he was looking through me as if he could see the layers of my soul, the places I had been afraid to show anyone. Amelia, he said, his voice lower now, filled with something raw and honest. There's something I need to tell you. I swallowed hard, my heart racing in my chest. His words hung in the air, heavy with anticipation. What is it? I asked, unsure if I was ready to hear whatever he had to say. Ryan took a step closer, his hand gently resting on my arm. I've never felt this way about anyone before, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. From the moment I saw you, I knew there was something between us, something I couldn't ignore. And I don't want to wait any longer to tell you how I feel. I froze, the words sinking in. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? Was he admitting that he felt the same pull, the same electric connection that I had been feeling all along? Before I could speak, Ryan continued, his eyes never leaving mine. Amelia, I think I'm falling in love with you. The world seemed to stop in that moment. The sound of the wind, the distant hum of traffic, it all faded into silence. My heart pounded in my chest, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure what to say. His words were everything I had been too afraid to admit, everything I had kept locked inside. And yet, now that he had said them, I couldn't find the right words to respond. I think I'm falling in love with you too, I finally managed to say, my voice trembling with the weight of the truth. I've been scared, Ryan. Scared to feel anything again. But when I'm with you, it feels right. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. Ryan smiled, his eyes softening. He reached for my hand, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. We'll take it slow, okay? He said, his thumb gently tracing the back of my hand. No rushing. Just us figuring this out together. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. I had spent so long afraid of loving someone, afraid of being vulnerable, but with Ryan, it felt like I could be myself. He wasn't asking for perfection, he was just asking for me. And I realized in that moment that I wanted to give him that. From that night on, things between Ryan and me shifted in the most beautiful way. We spent more time together, getting to know each other in ways that went beyond surface-level conversations. We shared our dreams, our fears, our pasts, and with each conversation, we grew closer. But it wasn't just the deep conversations that made me feel connected to him. It was the little moments, like when he would walk me to my door after a late shift, or when he would hold my hand in public, as though he was proud to be with me. Those small acts made my heart swell with something I hadn't felt in years, something real, something pure. And every time I looked into Ryan's eyes, I was reminded of the magic of first love. It wasn't about grand gestures or declarations, it was about the quiet moments, the way he made me feel safe, the way he made me feel seen. For the first time, I realized that love wasn't about finding someone who completed you. It was about finding someone who made you feel whole, just as you were. As the days turned into weeks, I knew that this was just the beginning. This wasn't some fleeting attraction, it was something real, something that was growing stronger every day, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take us.